Hey, so it's 4 years since COVID started, and my wife and I were thinking about this, and I wanted to talk about 11 things, 10 or 11 things that I'll never forget about COVID and have changed who I am completely as a person, and I'll never forget. Yeah, let's talk about COVID. It's been 4 years. So as an adult, I definitely look back with nostalgia on a lot of things in my life. And randomly I'll get feelings, I'll get sound, smells, things that people say, taste, whatever, something that triggers these emotions, these flashbacks to a lot of the things that I've done. Whether that was from my time in the service, or foods, or vacations, or things I've done with my kids, there are definitely a lot of nostalgia that's brought about by smells and feelings. But with this being the anniversary of COVID, it's been 4 years now since the beginning of COVID, I wanted to archive some of the things that I remember from COVID, some things I'll never forget, and something that you wouldn't know if you never survived COVID. So I came up with a list of 10 things. My wife and I were sitting around talking. It may have been a Friday and there may have been some libations involved in this, but it kind of got me a little nostalgic. I'm grateful that I survived COVID, but I also want to remember some of these things because it's such a weird time that I want to forget that I'll never forget. I'll always remember. These are 10 things, let's say 11 things that I'll always remember as someone who lived through COVID. So the first two revolve around hand sanitizer, and the first one is that tequila hand sanitizer. That scent of tequila, the non-Purell hand sanitizer. Purell has that scent to it. It's very industrial. It's just got that just regular alcohol scent to it. But during COVID, everyone was trying to make money on hand sanitizer, and we were also all trying to get hand sanitizer to keep ourselves clean because all the Purell was going towards hospitals. So I guess distilleries started taking tequila and all kinds of gin and all kinds of stuff and turning it into hand sanitizer. So some smelled like moonshine, some smelled like tequila. I think there was one that smelled like gin. I had one that smelled also like mint chocolate chip cookies. And just that smell of non-Purell hand sanitizer really got me nostalgic for regular hand sanitizer. The second thing is also that sticky feeling you get from the tequila hand sanitizer that was thickened to be more like a gel and less like a liquid. The third thing that I'll never forget about COVID is, as a parent with children in daycare, getting the email notification that your child was exposed to COVID. We got it 3 or 4 times, and that meant a 5-day quarantine where you were at home with your kids. Luckily, we only had one kid at the beginning of COVID, so it was definitely easier, but there's just that sinking feeling that you got when you got that email notification. It was horrible. The fourth thing I'll never forget is that scent, that feeling of that mask that you've had on for days, that you really just don't want to wash another mask. And the other feeling of a paper mask that you've had too long. As a person with stubble, a beard, it would shred it up and get really, really fuzzy. And then the other thing about face masks is that you forgot, let's say you're going someplace that you needed a face mask to wear inside. You don't have one, you don't want to be the person that asks for one, walks in without one, so you find one like under your car seat and it's just nasty and old, but you're like, well, I gotta wear one. I'll never look at face masks the same again. The fifth one may be pretty common for any of you who have avoided germs your whole life, but to me, I never really thought much about coughing in public, but definitely during COVID, I think when you would hear someone coughing on the other side of the store, it would freak you out. And this is back when we didn't know hardly anything about COVID. And I can even remember when COVID started, we were shut down, or everything was shut down, and I would drive around, there'd be no one on the road, but you could still go into stores without face masks. Face masks were not a thing initially, which blows my mind that we didn't have that be a thing. But anyway, you'd hear someone coughing, and to me, I would just leave. I had a young kid at home. I didn't want COVID. I didn't want to get sick. I had to work. I was on a new job that started right as COVID started. It was crazy. But yeah, I avoided anyone that would cough, and you'd get kind of weirded out by anyone who coughed in your proximity. And even if they had a mask on, you'd still freak out. You'd immediately think, oh, that person has COVID. Yeah, it was a crazy time. Lots of hysteria. So the sixth thing I'll definitely remember from COVID, and it's something that COVID made me do, and that's when people would get too close. We got so used to standing 6 feet apart. It's still taking me really up to the last year to get over standing too close to people. I always give people a ton of room, but just like even being in an elevator freaks me out. We went on a cruise a couple weeks ago, and I was very uncomfortable getting into an elevator with a ton of people. And you remember all these horror stories about cruise ships getting stuck out in the ocean because of a COVID outbreak. And it's just, I don't think I'm gonna get over that one. The seventh thing that will always forever remind me of COVID are nose swabs. I think if you've ever gotten tested, you definitely are used to this, but it's just that burn, that smell, getting stuck up there doing the swirl. Like, yeah, I'll never look at Q-tips the same again. So the eighth thing that I'll always remember from COVID, and what kind of, I guess, a little PTSD from, is finding food and formula and toilet paper. So when COVID first happened, everyone cleared out soap, hand sanitizer, and groceries. It was so hard. We were coming home from the hospital with our firstborn like the day of, and I had to try and send family members out to find some food, but there was absolutely, there's like no food on the shelves. And there were tons of supply chain issues. And then like mid 2000, I guess 21, 22, we started running out of toilet paper, and you could only buy one case of it from Costco. And then really starting around 2022, like June, July, there was no formula. Our second kid they got all kinds of different types of formula, and they say you're only supposed to be on one type, but we literally could only, like, every day was, where are we gonna find formula now? In fact, we had a friend that would reach out all over the country because their child had a food allergy, and they had to ask for friends to find formula from their place to mail to them. It was crazy. So the ninth thing that I'll kind of remember from COVID that makes you, still to this day, makes me think a little bit, are like public touch spaces, but specifically groceries. So we had neighbors too that would do this. Like, we would get groceries and clean them because we had young kids at home and we didn't want to catch COVID. Again, we didn't understand, we weren't taking any risks, and we had neighbors that would bring their groceries out, they would get them delivered, they put them on a table, and they would just spray or wipe them down, and a lot of people did that. Nothing like trying to find Clorox wipes, which were impossible to find, or spray to try and clean your groceries when you picked them up or got them delivered. And you would wear gloves too. A lot of people would wear gloves to the store and then change gloves, and it was very hypoallergenic. Yeah, it was a weird time. But again, we didn't know anything about COVID really, so we were doing whatever we thought would make us feel comfortable so we wouldn't get sick. Yeah, it was a weird time. The 10th thing would be doing anything, going to great lengths to safely hang out with neighbors during the lockdown. So again, I was out traveling, I was wearing a mask, I was working with people outside, and I would come home from work and we had a newborn and my wife was at home, and we had neighbors that we would hang out with, and we didn't want to get anybody sick. In fact, it was like 8 or 9 months before anyone even held our child. And we would all hang outside, and you know, COVID started in March and we were fine, but even into that winter, we would hang outside and it would be like 5 below zero and we'd have a huge bonfire, but we had no other option. And we would bundle our kid up and they'd sleep outside, and, you know, kind of like they do in Norway and Scandinavian region. But we would do whatever. If it wasn't raining or snowing, we would just bundle up, bring blankets, whatever it took, just to hang outside. We had nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing was open. You couldn't see anyone. In fact, you really didn't go see people if they weren't in your immediate bubble because you didn't know what they were exposed to, and we did not want to transmit COVID. So yeah, we would go to great lengths to do whatever it took to hang out, regardless of the weather. Again, if it wasn't precipitating, we were outside regardless of. The last thing I'll remember too is waiting until kind of like, you know, I guess maybe some people were praying that their like draft number wouldn't come up. We were praying that they would open up the vaccine to our age group. And when it did, we drove so far away. We drove out like 2.5 hours to go get the vaccine. And that feeling of that first vaccine, it's never, I mean, it had some boosters since then, but it wasn't quite the same. I was so sick and tired. Like I was like literally felt sick and tired and run down for 2 days after, and I've never felt that way after a vaccine. I mean, but COVID's kind of a scary illness, so I would rather have the vaccine than have been exposed to the illness itself. But the boosters have been a lot easier since I got that, but that first go at it was just tiresome. And I've known a lot of people who have gotten the vaccine and they got COVID and were still out and out for a few days, but they pulled through just fine too. So, but yeah, just that feeling of angst until you had the vaccine, and once you had the vaccine, I personally felt so much better, and I was still following the protocol because I didn't want to catch it, but I felt so much more protected, and I'm very grateful to have that. But hey, so these are 11 things that I wanted to share. I wanted to archive, wanted to share some of my COVID stories because this is the 4-year anniversary. So yeah, it was a weird time, still is. We're still trying to figure it out, and there's so much there's so much division out there about this. So wanted to share my thoughts on it. It was a weird time. I hope it never happens again, but it might, because things happen. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Comment below what you remember from COVID. I'd love to hear from you. But thank you again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.